nobody was there to protect me and save me. And that feeling in itself is the worst feeling. And I never wanted anybody else to experience that feeling.
Yep. So you become a
So
protector.
I became the protector, the
Yeah.
Captain Saberhole. I don't ever
Ooh.
want anybody
I was
to.
called that so many
I don't
times
want
in my
anybody
life.
to ever feel like they're alone.
Yeah.
Because being alone, that is like the worst.
Yeah.
Like the
Especially
feeling.
when you're
And
just standing in big spaces,
right.
but you still feel alone. My name is Pierre Baines, and I welcome you to a safe space and we can have a conversation that leads to healing. Welcome to Put It on Front Street. I want to welcome you to Put It on Front Street. Today, my segment will be covering a topic on child molestation by a family member. Today's guest is a brother and a great friend of mine, Darren Forrest. So I want to welcome you to talk about the tough topics that we don't get to discuss, and just to kind of heal from those things that have happened in our past and what it looks like to live a healthy life growing up. So I want to welcome my guest. So we know why we're here today, to talk about some things that have happened to both of us in our life. So I want to kind of give you the floor just to kind of set the groundwork to elaborate a little bit on what that transpired in your life and how that has affected you, and how did you come out of that storm.
I remember growing up, like, I didn't know what was right, what was wrong, obviously. I mean, I was 6. So, at first, I thought that it was like, okay, is this something that's supposed to be happening to me, or is this something that I deserved, or something like that? Because growing up, I was a very, very happy kid. Like, I was so happy up until it started to happen. And I really didn't know or understand what was happening to me until I actually got older. Um, I remember growing up extremely angry, angry at my parents, angry at like my siblings. Um, to this day, like honestly, this is like one of the first times I'm talking about it outside of like my core people. So it's very interesting that I've finally gotten to a point where I can talk about it and not necessarily, cry or whatever case may be. Of course, if the emotions come up, I'm going to, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But um, I just remember a shift in who I was as a kid.
Yeah.
I just remember I was in a very, very dark place. I got to the point where I would eat, and I gained a lot of weight so that I wouldn't get touched anymore.
Wow.
But then on the back end, like I'm getting verbally talked to from my mom, like, you're big, you're fat, you need to lose some weight, not knowing what
That was
was
doing to
going
you
on.
mentally.
Right. So that in itself was another trauma trigger for me, because like now like I've developed like body dysmorphia. Like I work out all the time, or like I watch what I eat. I mean, like
Yeah.
I barely, what I mean,
I've
that's
cooked
just
for you, so I know.
like you
I
just,
know.
I mean, So, but yeah, like to this day, my parents do not know, and I think my mother has probably had an inclination about it. Um, because she always would say, like, you're so angry, like, what's wrong? Like what is going on?
Yeah.
But I was getting threatened to say, like, you know, if you tell anybody that he would probably basically try to kill me almost. Um, so
That is,
hearing that as a child, it's like what do I do?
yeah. Who do you turn to? Because now someone that's supposed to protect you or look out for you is disregarding who
Exactly.
you are as a human being. Like you don't have an
Exactly.
outsource.
So it was definitely hard. I didn't I didn't know, like, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know. And then obviously, as I continued to get older and grow up, um, that's when I started to see, like, okay, what happened to me? Like, something happened to you. And I got to the point where I kind of pushed it so far back in my head
You
to
blocked it
try
out.
to block it out, to say, like, like, I'm fine, I'm cool. I'm
Yeah.
saying nothing's wrong. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Um, but it took me a lot to get to where I'm at right now, to actually be here to talk to you about it. Um,
And I commend you because it's not an easy road.
it's not easy at all, and I
Yeah.
had to go through a journey of things, of navigating, of like who I was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Navigating not only obviously because I mean I am gay, so I have like dealing with that growing up on top of being molested, on top of getting bullied at school and like all this other stuff. Like I didn't have an outlet or anybody to talk to.
So you were basically suffocating
Yep,
majority of your life.
exactly.
Yeah. Um, I went through something similar. So my age was, I say, a little older than you, like around 8 or 9. Um, and I didn't, like most kids our age back in the 80s, our parents didn't teach us those conversations. I feel like that should have been very important,
Uh-huh.
especially learning one's body,
Yep.
knowing what is appropriate, what is an inappropriate
Yep.
touch, especially from any person that is outside of your mother and father.
Yep.
And I feel like, I blamed my parents,
Mm.
because I was like, you didn't prepare me for
Mm-hmm.
the world.
Mm-hmm.
And the world was right in my backyard,
Mm-hmm.
basically. It was my older cousin who, at some point, I was close to. Um, and that touch kind of navigated me into anger, of course, constantly fighting. I completely switched. There was like a blackout.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't recognize who I was.
Mm-hmm.
Um, any trigger was like, if you disrespect me, I'm fighting you
Yep.
off top. There is
Yep.
no second
I had a
chance.
short
Yeah,
fuse.
short fuse because it's now like you're on guard
Uh-huh.
about everything.
Yep, because you feel like you have to protect yourself because you obviously weren't being protected.
Yeah.
You know.
And so my situation with that was um him kind of making me feel like it was okay.
Mm-hmm.
That was like the cope. Like I look at him like, definitely you preyed upon me in a way that you made it seem like it was okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just like the biggest hurdle to get over because it's like, of course, as you grow and you learn, you're like that wasn't cool,
Right.
that wasn't right. And then you learn that, like, oh my god, like I was molested
Mm-hmm.
and it was somebody supposed to protect me,
Mm-hmm.
but he lied and he coerced me into thinking that him touching me inappropriate was okay.
Yeah.
And then I just became a stranger to my own self. Like I said, I didn't recognize myself, but I also, as most people that have been molested or raped or whatever, you start using your body in a different way. Like,
Yes.
yes, I'm gay too, so I was like, okay, free for all.
Yep.
Like I'm having sex, I'm having protected sex, but I'm having sex with whoever I find attractive.
See, with me, it was obviously being when we were younger, saying that okay, being gay is, you know,
Wrong.
it's wrong. It's a stigma. All
Yeah.
this other stuff. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So I obviously I still did use my body, but I tried to suppress that side of me so much that I would have sex with women all through out like all through college, all through everything growing
Mm-hmm.
up. I really was like I have to suppress this part of me
Mm-hmm.
because I it's wrong. I've been told that it's wrong,
Yeah.
So I would do whatever I needed to. Obviously I would be protected and everything, but I wouldn't do whatever I need to block out or not try to deal with that aspect of my life because that would open up so much more
Mm-hmm.
things, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And me as in college, I mean 18, 19, 20, 21 or whatever the case may be, of course you have parties and stuff like that. But like I would find people attractive, like another guy attractive, but I would never like act on it. You know what I'm saying? I'd be like, oh no, I gotta go and talk to this girl and do X, Y, and Z. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So
Because you don't want that other secret to come out.
exactly. And
Yeah.
even then, like growing up, people would always bully me and actually like think or say or talk about saying that questioning if I was
Yeah.
gay or whatever.
Yeah, I got that from other older cousins, and the reason why is because the one that was touching me would also bully me and make me feel less than when I came around. So it was just like I'm trying to understand like what happens behind closed doors, quote unquote, with you. That's okay, but then when I get around my other cousins in front you, you're talking the most trash about me, and they're looking at him like, wait, aren't y'all close?
Right.
Like, so what is it? And it was just also, I felt like he was trying to protect himself because it was like, I don't know if you're catching feelings for me,
Right.
or you're knowing that what you're doing is wrong,
Right.
of course, because you're older,
Right.
and now you're trying to make it look like as like I don't mess with him, like he a sissy, like he's soft, but all the while I'm like I'm just quiet and I'm meek. But of course, in our community, when you're soft spoken or you're well spoken, you get the negative slurs thrown at you by closest people to you, which is sad. So I felt like my journey, like yours, messing with, women, I knew a part of me was just like, I'm not attracted to you. Like I'm picturing somebody else's face on your body, but I'm like, I'm working through it.
Yeah.
And then at the point when I left my hometown, I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna be me. And I started dealing with guys, but it was like later part into my 20s when I started like experiencing trying to figure it out.
Right.
But it was a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, because even like willingly being with a guy, that was in itself was already another trigger point because
That touch.
that exactly. So it took me a long time to even want to do anything with anyone that was a man or a male, because it just took me back to me being 6.
Yep.
Is what it did.
And that's the also sad case because it's like in your daily day when like you think that you've overcome something, that one insignificant touch or that whisper of something just comes back and it's like a cold chill.
Yeah.
And then you tense up and then everybody else is like, you good? And I'm like, yeah, I'm great.
Yeah, because it got to the point where like if I don't like big crowds. I can't I don't know. I don't know what it is. Big crowds, I don't know. But I used to didn't like anybody standing behind me. So like if I'm standing in a line or whatever, I will always turn. So I can know what's happening around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I never I don't like being hugged from behind type of thing. Like that really it just makes me icky. You know what I mean?
It's that ick feeling. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mine was cuddling. Because that was something like he's bigger than me, so it's just like you're trying to make me feel small when I'm not. Like I was always tall.
Right.
And when I was younger, like I was more athletic.
Yeah.
So I had more little weight on me, but you always try to make me feel small. So cuddling was never something I liked. I hated it because it was just like it reminded me of him and that situation. So now I'm getting past certain things, but certain things I still to this day do not like. Yeah. I don't like PDA. One. Okay. So I don't like physical touch. Like I'm not a big hugger. And that was one of the reasons because his hugs were like, I got you. And it's just like, no, you don't got me. And then it was to the point that I had to kind of like work through it.
And that makes sense because like now that I think about it, even like since we're just sitting here talking when we talk about hugs and stuff, like the hug that I give like a woman like my best friend or my sister or whatever, it's totally different. Like it's an embrace, like you know, because I want them to know that I'm protecting them or whatever. But like when I see like my dad and stuff like that, it's like one of those type of thing. You know what I mean?
It's always that arm in between.
Exactly. It's not like a.
It's never a bear hug, and I feel like those hugs are us protecting a part of our
you just
trauma.
taught me something. Because I notice now that I do that with my brothers and like and my dad and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I never really correlated that until you actually put words to that.
Yeah, because I felt like that with my own father. I didn't really hear "I love you" a lot
Never.
throughout my life, um, which is another unpackful thing. Uh, and then I also realized that I was protecting myself from any male figure because I didn't trust them anymore.
Same. I can attest to
And
that.
then, of course, you being my father and not even much seeing this
Yeah.
whole black hole that I had sunk myself into
Yeah.
made me look at him completely different because I'm like, I'm the only son,
Hmm.
you know? So it's just like, how did you not see this completely new person
Right.
standing in front of you?
Right.
Um, but that part just also taught me to be not only self aware, but I was definitely so self efficient
Mm.
and independent
Hmm.
that I would never count on anybody.
That makes sense too.
And I mean, anybody. I will struggle. Like, people say, oh, I'm eating peanut butter sandwiches for 2 weeks. That would be me. I am cool with that.
Right.
I'd rather struggle by myself than depend on any other
Yeah.
human being because
Yeah.
that's how I felt. I couldn't depend on any of the type people that I felt was supposed to protect me from something that I still live with at the age of 38.
Exactly. Yeah. See, like with me, like I'm the type of person that I'm always either protecting or trying to solve something or try to figure out something. And that is goes for anybody that I care about. Like if they're going through something, I kind of like take on their problems as well, so
Mm-hmm.
that that they know that somebody is there. Like
Yeah.
my friends, like my best friend, she will always say, she was like, why do you always feel like you gotta save everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you feel like you always got to be that one, that go-to person? Like I know back in school, like it was a bad because like I felt like everybody was my friend. And I felt like, oh, they're going through something you want to talk about, let's talk about it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? If you're feeling a certain type of way, let's talk about it. Let's see what I can do to help you out or
Yeah.
whatever. And I really had to really stem and figure out what that stemmed from. Because I did that in relationships. I did that in with family, with friends. I did that with everybody. And I just never knew. So like when I went through my journey of like what I call is understanding my whys. So like I went on a journey, like I really did some self-work and figure out like why did that trigger me? Why did that piss me off? Why did I react the way that I reacted? Why do I do the things that I do? Why do I, whatever? I'm like, well, where does it stem from? And a lot of it obviously stems back from me being molested or being touched. And nobody was there to protect me and save me. And that feeling in itself is the worst feeling. And I never wanted anybody else to experience that feeling.
Yep. So you become a
So
protector.
I became the protector, the
Yeah.
Captain Saberhole. I don't ever
Oh,
want anybody
I was
to,
called that so many
I don't
times
want
in my
anybody
life.
to ever feel like they're alone.
Yeah.
Because being alone, that is like the worst,
Yeah.
like the
Especially
feeling.
when you're
And
just standing in big spaces,
right.
but you still feel alone.
And especially when you're still trying to navigate and understand one, what's happening, two, your emotions. Because like you said before, I come from a household where we don't talk about nothing. Like we don't talk about anything. Like it is to the point where it got to the point where like we're just now having those tough conversations. You know what I mean? We're just now, I'm 35, I just turned 35, and we're just now talking about a lot of things that, how my dad made me feel. Because me and my dad were never close either. Like, we were never close. I was always close to my mom. No matter what was said, no matter whatever the case may be, I was always close to my mom. My sister, I was always closer to her rather than my brothers. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
Because I looked at them as the protector because they weren't men. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There wasn't the person that was actually touching me.
Exactly.
But yeah, growing up, we didn't talk about anything. So I didn't know how to talk about my emotions. I had to learn that growing up. You know what I mean? I didn't know how to effectively communicate anything.
Yeah.
Because like you know how black households are.
Yeah.
You know what I
Some
mean?
of them just are trauma after trauma after
Exactly.
trauma,
I was just
and
about to
it's just
say.
and I and I feel like yes, my parents were a little bit different. They didn't have to go through as much as their parents went
Right,
through.
right,
So it's just like you learn from your mistakes. So you learn, bringing another human being into the world, like you do better. So yes, financially, great,
right,
you know.
right.
Um, but there were some cracks in the
Of
floor,
course.
as they say. And I felt like, especially on the end of my father, because I was really close with my dad growing up.
Interesting.
There's pictures of me sleeping on my dad's chest.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
I had the bond with my father.
Mm-hmm.
My mother and I, of course, were tight, but I had much of more of like, that's my hero.
Right, right.
And then to see that my hero failed me, and the way that he failed me, in my eyes, just completely destroyed our relationship. I didn't speak to my father once I left New Orleans, once I graduated high school. I didn't speak to my dad for over 6 years.
Oh wow.
I went ghost. The only person that had my phone number was my little sister.
Oh wow.
So I felt like, you abandoned me. In a sense, I'm going to abandon you.
Yeah.
And I don't need you. And I
Mm-hmm.
have proven that point,
Mm-hmm.
that I don't need you. It's not a happy feeling to, tell your parent that I don't need you. In the sense that my dad now, it's just like he'll call and it's just like, yeah, hey, it's surface.
Yeah.
And we've gotten better over the years, but it's still not where it should be and could be.
Yeah.
And I'm open and I'm receptive to it. And he knows now. Um, I basically had just like a blowout and just told him, one year, what happened, and he was like, "I didn't know," and I felt bad how I did it, but I just needed to just let
Get
it
it
go
out.
because I kept being volcanic
Yeah.
throughout my whole life.
Yeah.
Like if it wasn't on a job, like you say something wrong to me, I'm clicking out on
Mm-hmm.
you. If I'm in the street, I'm fighting, especially if you're a dude. So it's just like it's like you're trying to figure out where it comes from, and you know where it comes from, but you're trying to block that out because you're like, no,
Mm-hmm.
I'm good. I healed from that. But in actuality, you haven't healed from it
Yeah.
because it's constantly recurring in your life.
Yeah.
And so I just took the steps. I was like, okay, I need to talk to somebody because one of these days either I'm gonna fight the wrong person and they're gonna shoot me,
Child.
or like I'm just gonna end up just really messed up.
Right.
So I started going to therapy, and to me, I know a lot of black people out there in the world always like, oh, that's white people stuff. No, it's therapeutic
Yep.
for a reason. Like you need to express your feelings, whatever they are, and get it out and release it and truly let it go.
Yeah.
And I'm a very spiritual person, so I pray a lot. I do the work. Like I've truly have been doing the work, and that's why now to this day that it doesn't trigger me in the way that it used to.
Right.
But it still is a sore subject
Yep.
in a way, because most of my family on both sides, mother and father, didn't know. I've shared it with certain people that are close to me, and they have been supportive. You being one of them, but it's just like we're on the same wavelength. We're trying
Right.
to like work through those issues, but still not hold on to it.
Right. And I just feel like we always like we have to continue to give ourselves grace. You know what I mean? Because like it's a lot. You know what I mean? It's a lot to carry. It's a lot to not really deal with. You know what I mean? Like the first person I told was my sister. Um, and I remember we were laying on my couch, and that's when I told her actually that I was at that time I said I was bi, of course. But then I told her, and she just lost it. She lost it because she always felt like she was my protector.
Mhm.
She's like, whenever anybody that she saw was bullying me or whatever the case may be, she was always there. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? She was always there. And she was like, I don't know how I missed that.
yeah,
I don't know. But I'm like, you're a child too. Like,
yeah,
you're 2 years older than me. Like, you were a kid as well. I mean,
yeah,
I'm not. It's not your responsibility
yeah,
to be looking after me.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And yeah, that she was the first person that I told. And then the next person I told was my best friend. And we were in the car, and once I got it out like those first two times, then it became a little bit more easier to like talk about and not, cry or get mad or get angry or whatever the case may
Yeah.
be. I feel like now that I've talked about it so often that it's helped actually healing a little bit,
Yeah.
but I know that it's still like a journey to go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, I got my parents. I mean, I need to have that conversation with my parents.
Yeah.
But one of the main reasons why I didn't or haven't as of yet is because I didn't want to one open up a whole nother can that I don't know if my parents are ready for,
Yeah.
and two, I didn't want to go in the that did that really happen? The questioning, like, did that really happen to you?
I
Are you
felt like that.
sure
Yeah. I
that that
felt like
happened?
that
No, that didn't happen.
outside, like aunts and uncles in the
Yeah,
family would have been a ear,
yeah,
like, child, that
like
baby wasn't
that's what
touched,
I'm saying.
kind of thing like that. And so that goes back to, who do you trust?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's really, really powerful in itself, because it's like I'm sitting here thinking, like, was there one person that I could have trusted? Was there one person? And I don't try to go down that path, because then it makes me angry.
Right.
So I just kind of, like, as they said, let go and let God, and I just be like, you'll reap what you sow.
Right.
Because to me, being molested, if you ever raped, those type of situations, you live with that. You live with that for the rest of your life.
Because literally your innocence is being taken
Yeah,
away.
exactly. Especially at a young age, you
Yeah.
don't know how to process those mixed feelings, because one, you're probably an adolescent that's going through hormones, and one, I don't even much know what that's about,
Right.
because no one talked to me about it.
Right.
So it's just like, it's just so much to unpack. And then it's just like a lifetime of, like, years of me dealing with this in silence. And my therapist used to say, "You were S&S," and I was like, "What?" She was like, "You were suffering in
Mm.
silence," and I was like, "Yeah, I was," because I didn't have an outsource.
Yep.
I didn't have access to a therapist until I was older and
Yep.
I was financially stable to do so. That wasn't something that was, brought to my attention at a young age. Even when my mother passed, like, they talked about therapy, but then they were just like, "Oh, let's pray about it."
Ugh.
And I'm just like, okay, yeah, like, but it's so much, yes, that prayer can do, and I
Yeah.
understand that having a relationship with God or whoever you believe in,
Absolutely.
does help. But He gives us these resources for a reason, and I feel like a lot of times we don't tap into them because we're so afraid of what other people will say.
Right.
And I've just gotten to the point that I am okay with the person that I look in the mirror with,
Mm-hmm.
and I am secure in my masculinity, being a male, a gay male, a black gay male. It's just so many layers on
On
top of
top of
that
that.
that you just have to be okay with. And a
Right.
lot of people don't know how to walk in our shoes or even have empathy
Right.
sometimes.
Right.
They just be like, "Oh, you just shake it off," and it's just like, shake what off?
Right.
Shake my innocence off? So how do you right now feel in this moment? Because, the outside world will see us and they will, have their opinions, but how do you feel about, like, reaching someone that, may prevent this from happening, or that has went through this and now they know that, like, I can overcome this.
There's always the light is there. You know what I mean? I was in such a dark place for a very, very long time. And looking back now that I'm an adult, I can say that I was in a dark space. I probably didn't know it then. You know what I mean? Um, but the light is there. And I think that the first step really is to accept that something did happen to you and that it was not your fault. That's the biggest thing. That is not your fault.
That's key, because a lot of people that have been preyed upon
No,
feel like it's their fault.
exactly, because no matter what they told you, no matter what was said to you, whatever the case may be, it's not your fault. And
It's not your fault.
so like I really like it's a journey, and it's a journey to get to your most authentic self, honestly. Because I know like people don't like to be vulnerable, people don't like to talk about their emotions and stuff like that. And that in itself, like I get it. I mean, talk about your emotions and being vulnerable is very, very hard,
It
you
is.
know. But in order for you to really get to the root of understanding who you are, you have to sit in that vulnerability. You have to sit in that in those emotions and really ask yourself, like, who are you? And I've had to do that plenty of times, with the layers of things that have happened to me growing up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I like being a male, being black, being gay, all that stuff. Having the people who supported you or people who don't support you, or having like people having to navigate to get to the place of acceptance and you being okay if they're not going to accept you, type
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
It's a journey, but it's gonna be it's gonna get better. You're gonna overcome it. You're gonna come on the other side, and it's gonna get to the point where you can have conversations like this and really be a help to somebody who's dealing with such things that are just in a dark place right now.
Yeah.
Like it happened to me too.
Yeah. And I feel like that was my aha moment when I just started journaling,
Hmm.
like writing down all my emotions and all my thoughts and trying to figure out how to overcome my hurdles. And I just felt like, okay, step one, own what happened.
Yep.
And I say that when I say own what happened, truly understand that, like you said, it's not your fault. You weren't protected. So how do we prevent this from happening again? Or how do we navigate the journey that we're on and work through it with being able to trust again?
Hmm.
Because that was a big thing for me. I didn't trust people. I Anybody that basically wasn't my little sister and maybe a close few, everyone was disposable.
Yeah.
Because I looked at it as a transaction. You're gonna come in my life for a season or two, and then you're gonna leave. So I'm probably gonna leave first.
Right. Because trust. I mean, I have a hard time trusting people too.
Yeah,
Especially if I get to the point where, I let you in or whatever, and some type of hurt or whatever happens, I'm so quick to cut somebody off.
oh, I'm still like that.
So, and it's like to the point where you don't even
This,
exist. You would doubt,
you're a ghost.
you'll doubt yourself that you're existing,
Yeah,
type of thing.
yeah,
And that's something that I have to protect.
yeah,
And once my trust is like broken or whatever, because I don't lend my trust out a lot, then that is really it's it.
yeah,
It's like once you break someone's trust, it's like paper. You ball it up, it will never be flat again.
yeah. I like that. And I think we spoke about that when you was like, it's a privilege to have access to me.
It is a privilege to have access to me, to who I am as a person, and the spirit and the soul that I give out.
Yeah,
It really is.
yeah,
And I don't feel like everybody should have that privilege to have that access to me because why do you think you deserve it?
yeah. And 10 times out of 10, it's superficial, or it's, clout chasing, or
Hmm.
whatever, word people want to throw out these days. I just feel like with me, once you reach a certain type of like owning your work, and you've healed from certain things that you have went through
Hmm.
in your adolescence and your young adult to like where you are now, you start moving differently.
Hmm.
And that access is cut off to certain people that you used to have access to,
Hmm.
or had access to you, vice versa. And I look at it as, a good thing. It's not a bad thing. You didn't do me anything personally, kind of
Right,
thing.
right,
I just know that I'm growing, I'm evolving, I'm changing, and I'm doing the work. And you are complacent, and that's okay.
right.
But I know that I want to continue to move forward in my journey.
Hmm.
And sometimes, that's just what has to happen. But we will take a quick, brief moment, and we will be back with Put It on Front Street. And we want to welcome you back to Put It on Front Street, the discussion of being preyed on by a predator with my brother and guest Darren Forrest. So we're going to elaborate a little bit more on some of the childhood trauma, and just kind of like get some clarity and some healing from it. So D,
So yeah, I had a question for you. So you know how many people say or think that any type of touching, molestation, or whatever case may be as a child contributes to someone that is gay.
mhm,
So do you think that what happened to you
mhm.
contribute to you, I guess, being who you are as a black gay male?
I would definitely say it's I don't want to say 50-50. I would say it's more of like a 80-20
Okay.
because you fight against those urges, you fight against being different because growing up in a black brown adjacent community
Right.
that we both grew up in, being different is not always good.
Right. Right.
So with me personally, my father is an Italian man.
Okay.
My mother is Creole. So I already had adversities to a certain extent growing up in New Orleans. Like I wasn't black enough. Of course, I got faux locks in,
Mm-hmm.
thanks to Protective Styles by Simone, my homegirl. But I felt like it was more of a jab.
Okay.
And when I say it was a jab, it was just more of like, damn, like I'm not even much accepted by my own people. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like you're you're making me an outcast, and I already feel like that.
Right. Right.
So to elaborate, but not go so deep, I felt like an alien,
Okay.
and I use that term still to this day sometimes because I'm good with being different. Like I'm good with me. Like when I wake up, I'm thankful, and I don't fight against who I am.
Okay.
And I think that takes a toll on you, and you fighting against like something that truly is for you, or if it's against you, it'll dissipate.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't fight against being attracted to a male. Did the molestation kind of maybe trigger something or bring something out? Possibly. But honestly, I would never know because I didn't give I wasn't given a fair chance
Right.
um, to actually know if this is the lifestyle that I truly wanted to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that it is silver and gold over here being gay. There's a lot of adversities, of course, still to this day
Of
in
course.
2023, especially being a black gay male.
Yeah.
That's another layer. Because then, some people in the black community don't accept you.
Right.
And then you have a lot of people that talk against you in the way of like you're not accepted because you are of a sexual orientation.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell people before you hear me, see me, you don't know anything about
Right.
me.
Right.
And then even when you meet me, you still don't know me. You haven't even much given me a chance.
Mm-hmm.
So I just feel like it's just fucked up,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't choose a different path per se to say like not being gay.
Right.
Like, I'm married to an amazing guy. And we've built a beautiful life together. We've had adversities together and separately. So I don't think that my journey wasn't supposed to be this.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like the the little boy me is much happier now. He's not fully there yet, but he's much happier with the progress that the adult Pierre has taken and
Mm-hmm.
the steps that I'm continuing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a fight every day to be happy.
Right.
I choose to be happy.
Right.
I always say it's easy to be negative to a certain extent, but
Miserable.
it takes so much more energy.
Yeah.
Being happy is just a feeling.
Yeah.
And I choose to be happy. I choose my peace. I choose to keep the noise out and to center myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like my therapy, um, I run a lot just to clear my head. I journal a lot. I'm a big goofball, so I'm a big anime fan. So, that's just kind of like, what I've taken on to help me cope with certain things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna flip that question back to you. What do you think?
So for me, looking back. obviously when you're like an adult, you can like really like see yourself and see like how you were when you were a child.
Mm-hmm.
I always knew that I was different somehow, some way. This
Mm-hmm.
is even before it started. I always knew that I was different from my brothers. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? I always knew that there was something that was I would just didn't feel like I felt like myself, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
but I just didn't feel like what a son or a child of a son or whatever is supposed to be
Okay.
as far as a
So you
kid.
had a little sprinkle.
I mean, I probably did. I look back at pictures, I'd be like, okay, y'all didn't know at least a little something. You know what I mean? I'd be like, all right, but I always knew that I was different. I was always navigating to girls, obviously. And this is
Mm-hmm.
before it happened. That's why me and my sister are like this. Like we used to play with dolls and like all this other stuff. And obviously now looking back, it's like, okay, you're a kid playing with a doll. You know what I'm saying? It's not that the end of the world.
Exactly.
But of course, back then it's like you are a boy. You're supposed to play with a basketball. You're supposed to play with a football. You're supposed to be go running up and down, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Go outside
Basically,
and be stinky.
exactly. Basically, telling me what I should be doing because I am a boy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not knowing that I'm just a boy playing with a toy. That toy happened to be a doll. Who
Yeah.
cares? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I can say that now, but obviously growing up, that's like a big no. Like, big no. I remember my aunt, like when I would play with my sister, my aunt would be like, make sure your daddy don't see it, type of thing. You know what I'm saying? And she would make sure that my parents didn't really see that side. You know what I mean? And every time I would go to her house, you know what I mean? So I always knew that something was different about me. You know what I mean? I just felt different. And then of course the years went on or whatever the case may be, and then after that, I kind of still at this point we knew what the term was, what gay was. You know what I'm saying? I have people at school calling me a faggot and stuff like that. The bullying and stuff started growing up, and of course I'm just thinking I'm just being me. But then they get me feel like being me is wrong. So that's why I started to make sure that I stood up a little bit straight, or make sure I walked a little bit more masculine, or talked a little bit more masculine, or whatever the case may be. Because I was told that being gay is wrong and you're being bullied about it. So it's just like, what am I going to do? I'm going to try to change who I was, change who I am.
Yeah.
And I really, especially through middle school, that's really when it started in middle school and in high school. Even when I had a girlfriend, people were still saying X, Y, and Z. I was with her for like 4 or 5 years. You know what I'm saying? So, and I did that mostly for me, selfishly. Now saying it, as an adult, obviously I was just like, I got to do what I got to do. But now as an adult, I can say that it was selfish because, I'm not being truthful, not only to her, but for myself.
Yeah. But you were in survivor mode.
And I was in survival mode.
And that's the crazy thing, because a lot of people don't know survivor mode.
Yeah.
Like, like we hear the term, but like survivor mode, honestly, to the outside world looking in, you are like, hey, how do I protect myself from anything that is going to affect this bubble?
Yep.
Of like not being molested, not being bullied, not being shunned by my family, not being called these derogatory names and slurs from not only family members sometimes, because they can be, as vicious as the outside world. Because I personally had the cousins calling me a sissy. I never really heard fag, but then I heard the old saying, "Oh, he got a little sugar in his tank."
Ooh, I got that so
And that used to irk me. That's when my fighting came out, because it was just like, okay, I'm gonna show you better than you can tell me these words. I'm gonna show you that I'm a dude, so I'm gonna fight you and I'm gonna beat you up, and then you'll leave me alone. But it was just like, it would protect me, but then it also made me a target, because now people see that I can fight. So now the big dudes want to fight me, because now they're trying to prove a point.
Exactly.
So it was just like, that's how I learned how to fight, because I had to fight bigger dudes than me. I'm talking about like 6'6" football players, and I'm like, where are y'all coming from? And why? It was just like, and that's where I was put into survivor mode.
Yeah.
Like it literally was like, walking down the hallway, it's just like, okay, who gonna try to swing today?
Right.
Or who gonna try to, say something negative about me to make me become volcanic
Yeah.
because they knew I had a bad temper. So it was just like my parents was always coming to school in high school. It's like, oh Lord, he didn't fought again.
Yeah. And
What was the
like,
reason? And my mother, you know, she like, you beat him up? And I'm like, yeah. And she was like, oh, okay. But my father is just like, what is
what's
going
going
on
on?
with you? But then I'm looking at him like, up and down, like, I don't have nothing to say to you.
Right.
Just take me home or
Right.
punish me or whatever because, like, I don't have respect for you
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
And as a child and then like a young teen not having respect for their parent, that's kind of like low,
Yeah.
you know? And it
Yeah.
was just like, damn, like, I don't even have a relationship with my father and I'm supposed to like love him and he's supposed to protect me and all of these other emotions just packed on to that. But I don't want to stay on that. I want to ask a question which I think is very important to the children of today
Okay.
because we have so many kids that are themselves,
Yeah.
which I think is beautiful.
Yeah.
They know who they are, and they have protection in a way that we didn't. In the sense of like, you know, when you say a boy is playing with a toy, yes, it's a doll, but it's a toy.
It's a toy.
We come from masculine and feminine.
Yes.
Why do you think that it's so imperative that they just be like masculine, masculine, masculine for a boy? But then on the flip side, when a girl shows interest in sports or anything like that, she kind of gets a little pass, you know, like that double standard in a way.
Oh, yeah, it's always a double standard. It's always been a double standard, especially with between men and women, you know, or boys and girls, or whatever
Yeah.
the case may be. That's where you can dive into bisexuality. You know, if a woman is bi, then it's like, oh, okay, that's hot, that's sexy, you know, da 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 da. But then if you a man comes out and says like, okay, I like both. You know what I'm saying?
Child, you gay.
I'm sorry.
Sorry to the bisexuals.
Or like, you know, they're pansexual or whatever the case may be. Then like a man trying to do that, you know, they're always gonna have like, okay, are you just saying that because you don't want to say that you're gay, or do you endurely like both sex? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a whole nother thing that I would love to talk to somebody that is
We would be talking about
that is
it.
bisexual. You know, just to understand the mindset
Yeah.
of what was your journey like.
Yeah.
You know, because like I said before, I came out saying to my sister that I was bi. I said that to my best friend. You know what I'm saying? Those were the first two people that I had told. And at that point, you know, I had not had my first encounter with a man, but I just knew that something was going on. So I was just like, I just want to give it a term and see what happens. You know what I'm saying? See what's gonna happen. And
were they receptive to that by
they both were.
Okay.
They both were, surprisingly.
Okay.
I was like, don't do me.
I'm just saying, you know, okay.
So, but yeah, they both were like, okay, you know, my best friend, she is a social worker, so she always had like, okay, is that what you gonna say now? Okay, that's fine, you know, but now it's to the point like, you know, I'm in a space where I can actually say something. But as far as going back to what you had asked, I said, I mean, I just feel like everything that has been put on us is generational things that have been happening with our parents, like just like the generational trauma that's been going on. You know what I mean? They were taught a specific way of how a boy or how a man or how a girl or how a woman is supposed to be.
Yeah.
So they're just passing that down to us.
Yeah.
And I feel like we are the generation where obviously we're going to therapy, we're doing all the things and everything, but we're more so open and saying like, you look, like you don't have to put on the term on a child that doesn't even know what the term means.
Yeah. Because at that age, I know before anything took place sexual, your innocence basically is kind of like taken away in a way. Because it's like, well, damn, I can't even play with the toy with my little sister or my cousin. Like, who's to say that my Barbie wasn't about to murder all the toy soldiers? Like, you know, like it's just like you
take away somebody gay.
It's really not. But it's like it's that old school mentality. And like you said, it's just like those triggers and those traumas passed on generational. And it's just like, when does it end? When does it stop?
Yeah.
Like, and I feel like nowadays, like we're actually doing the work to make them completely end. But there's still a lot of work to do.
Absolutely. And like I said, I feel like we're the generation that kind of broken a lot of things when it comes to generational trauma, with going to therapy, actually having conversations, having unhealthy conversations. You know what I mean? Because and at least in my household, we didn't have those unhealthy conversations or
Yeah.
those hard conversations. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like me and my dad, we just had like the. I went home a couple of months ago. Breakthrough conversations,
That's good.
breakthrough conversations. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a lot of things that he didn't really know about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was finally in a space where I feel like I can vocalize a lot of things,
Yeah.
because that's when I started to really sit in myself and be like, okay, this is who I authentically am.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So it was also groundbreaking because it was like, now I'm introducing to you who Darren is.
Exactly.
And he was receptive to that.
Yeah. So
That's,
and in the beginning, when we started having like those conversations or whatever, he did give a little pushback.
mm-hmm.
You know, trying to say his side. And then it got to the point where he would just let me speak. So he let me speak. I vented. I said a lot of things. I said a lot of things that, you know, I'm sure probably hurt his feelings a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things that he probably didn't recognize or whatever. And I remember he sat there, he just let me talk. And then he processed it. And then the next day we had another conversation where he was letting me know how he felt and based off what I said. And then we just continued to talk. Like he actually helped me. Like he was like, coming out to my parents was like a whole nother thing, you know. And I just kept it away from my dad. I didn't know tell my dad anything. You know what I mean? Because we just didn't have those conversations, that relationship. You know, we didn't have that relationship at all.
And you didn't have like that bond or that trust
at all.
So it was just like, yeah, now I'm in my adulthood. I take care of myself, so now I can actually show up for myself.
Yeah.
So we're gonna wrap it up, but I would say my last question: what would you tell your younger self? Like in just like, you know, I wouldn't say like a long drawn out thing, but just like what would you tell younger Darren looking back and knowing what you know now and where you are in your life now? What, I wouldn't say advice, but what would you tell him?
I would say that it's going to be okay. That you're going to go through some things that, you know, you're not going to understand. Um, but eventually you're going to overcome it and be stronger. You're going to be a vessel for a lot of people, and know that it was not your fault.
It's powerful.
What would you say?
I would tell younger Pierre that uh, not to be afraid of his own power. Because a lot of times I would suffocate who I was, dim my light, you know, if you want to say that, for other people to shine. And it allowed for a lot of uncertainty in my life. And I had to overcome a lot to get to this point that I can actually be okay with what happened, you know, not having my mother, and just kind of like navigating it solo. You know, even though I had God with me, I still was physically solo. But just knowing that, as you always, you know, used to tell me, there's always light. Even if you don't see it, there's always a flickering of light. And I think that's like my key perspective, is that whatever life throws at you, you'll be able to catch it with the right tools and the right people that, you know, God puts in your life, and not to overthink who you are, and to truly, honestly love you solely. Because we all know if you don't love you, no one else will.
Right.
I didn't mean make you cry, but I think this conversation has definitely been much needed for just young men, period, whatever nationality you are, because, you know, predators are in all different shapes and forms. And I just want people to understand that this journey is not easy. Please give us grace. Talk to your strong friends and your strong family members. Um, Pray with them, laugh with them, uplift them, because life is tough already, and we just need support. And it's not that we're incapable or that we're not, that we don't want to work through the things that we have. It's just it's a lot to unpack. So we do it in our time, and I feel like the time now is healing. So I just want to thank you guys for tuning in to the first of many episodes on Put It on Front Street. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Darren.
You know I
I
got
love
you. I
you.
love
I
you more.
appreciate you. And we will see you for the next episode.